The Street Fighter arcade cabinet. You know, when this was released, I had to have it because growing up in the 90s, this was it, man. This is what you lived on, the Street Fighter. And I love my Street Fighter cabinet. But, you know, later on down the road, Arcade1up released other cabinets. Then they had the 12-in-1 cocktail cabinet, which has 8 additional Capcom games. You know, then they came the Marvel cabinet, you know, with Marvel and X-Men. And now they're going to be releasing a Marvel X-Men vs. Street Fighter cabinet. But maybe you don't have the room for all those. Maybe you don't have, or you want to get other cabinets as well. Or maybe you're not sure about the size of the cocktail, the screen on there. So what we're going to do, we're going to take all those. The 12-in-1, the Street Fighter, the Marvel. I'm going to put all of them together here into one. All-in-one build here. The image is in the description part of the video. Make sure you download that. Hop on over to the computer where we're going to get started. Alright, so on the PC here, go to raspberrypi.org on here and go to downloads up on top. We're going to download the imager where we could write in the image I provided. Whether you're on the PC or the Mac, download the one that corresponds to the system you're using. I'm on the Mac, so I'm going to download the Mac version. Once we have the program downloaded here it is. We're going to go locate our image. I'm going to pop in a SD card there and I'm going to write it in. Now here's the operating systems on here. You're going to go to the very bottom. We're going to use custom one because you're going to use the image I provided. Mine's on the desktop, located there, Arcade1up Street Fighter. You could keep it in the zip file. It actually works better. I find that unzipping it, sometimes it doesn't work or doesn't want to write it in. Then select your SD card. Make sure you select the right one, not like your hard drive or anything. And then click write. And this will begin the write process here. I'm going to speed things up here. Once that's done on here, take out the SD card, plug it into your Raspberry Pi, and I'll meet you over at the cabinet. Alright, so here we go. We got the SD card plugged in to our Raspberry Pi. Turn this on. As you can see, there's no text. There's no logo of RetroPie on here. We got rid of that. And then we're going to have the, there it is, the splash screen. Loads it up on here, which is included in the image. First thing you're going to be prompted on here is going to be controls. You're going to need to set the controls. I like to set my keyboard up because we're going to do a lot of different things. So whether you're using a USB, wired or wireless keyboard or keypad on here, make sure it's plugged in. Hold the button and then we're going to set the controls here. Your up, down, left, right, start, select, and then the buttons here, A, B, X. You don't have to do all of them on here. Some you're not going to have, like the analog, left analog, right analog. So to skip those, just hold the button that you've already have configured on here. And if you hold it, it'll skip the, as you can see here, skip the analog. And make sure your hotkey, I set my hotkey as my select button. And then click OK. Alright, the first thing we're going to do is resize the image because when I put it for download, just so the file size is not extremely big and it's easier for you guys to download them, I shrink it up. So go to Raspberry config. Here's Raspberry Pi configuration here, and this is where you could change that. We're going to go down to it's the advanced options, which is number 7. Click on that. As you can see right there, configure advanced settings. Press the enter. And it's the first one there, expand file system. So that's going to resize, you know, if you're going to be adding stuff on to the card out there so you don't run out of space on there. There you go. Set up. Then also I like to go to the interfacing option. This is where you're going to enable SSH. This will allow for us to transfer files and stuff remotely, you know, through the PC to the Pi. So make sure that's enabled. And also your localization, your Wi-Fi country, make sure you set that up. Mine's the US. If it's different, change it on there. I already got that configured here. It's done. Go on the bottom and click finish. It's going to ask you for a reboot, so just reboot, you might as well. Alright, so we're rebooted on here. Next, we got to set up our Wi-Fi. Unless you're connected hardwired on there, you don't need to. Go to RetroPie, and then on the very bottom where it says Wi-Fi, click on that. Mine's already connected on here, but obviously yours will not. So you'll go to the first one, connect to Wi-Fi network. Pretty simple here. You're going to locate your network, which one is yours, input your password, and you get connected. I'm going to exit out on here because, like I said, I'm already on here connected and set up. And once you're connected, over here where it says show IP, go there. You could go there. This is where you're going to have your IP. Make sure you write yours down because you're going to need it later. Next, we're going to go into controls. Now, make sure in your controls that you have your button set up where the start button, the player 1 start, is the first button you have on the encoder. The rest of the buttons could be however you want it set up, but the first button has to be button 0, the first one. That will be needed for our launching images to work correctly. So let's press start and configure this. And then go down to configuration input and click yes. We're going to set up both the left joystick and the right joystick on here. Now, on here, I'm going to bring up an image on here. As you can see, the control pad on there. I'm going to ask you to input the A button, the B button, X, and so forth. If you set it up like this, how I have it, the A button as your medium kick, B as your light kick, X as your medium punch, Y as your light punch, and so forth. If you set it up like this, it'll be one last thing that you would need to configure on the games, like the fighting games, because it will be set up the way it is. You're not going to have to change for each game. So we'll go in there now. I'm going to configuration input, hold the button, set the up, down, left, right on your joystick. Now I only have the start button, so I'm going to hit the start as my player 1. And then for select, I'm going to skip it. So I'm just going to hold start, skip that one. And then here, we're going to do A, like I said, as the medium kick here. Then B, as your light kick. X, strong punch. Y, jab punch. L, fierce punch. And R, roundhouse. And the rest we skip. We don't have any more buttons on here, so just skip the rest on here. Unless you have extra buttons, like I said, if you have a coin button, you can put that as your select button. I don't. I'm using the stock, no additional holes or buttons on this control pad here. So I'm going to skip. And then the hotkey, I'm going to set as my player 1. Right there.
Oh, I think you fell on the...
Alright, and that's it. That's done with that. Next, we're going to do the same thing here for our player 2. So we're going to go back into configuration input again. And this time we're going to hold a button on the second player here. So registers it. And same procedure. You're up, down, left, right. Start as my player 2 start button. And then I'm going to skip the select because I don't have one. If you do, you could press it there, and then again, same way. The A button's there, your forward kick, B, then the X and the Y, strong punch, jab punch, fierce punch, and fierce kick, and then just skip the rest here. You're gonna hold a button you already configured until we get to the hotkey, and again, same thing with the hotkey. You're gonna press the player 2, and that's gonna do it for the control on here. And we're just going to need to input and configure some other stuff in the retro arch. I'll go through those here as well. Alright, I'm going to pull up a game on here. Like I said, all the games have their launching image that shows you what button does what, but we're going to need to fix so that the start button does work and is activated to load the game, because right now it's going to be your A button. Unless you set your A button as your start button, then you don't need to do this step, but then your controls will be all messed up. So it's a very simple procedure here. As you can see, this is for press player 1 to continue, but right now if I press player 1, it's not going to do anything. It's still going to stay here on the image, and it's not going to move forward. Only the A button is going to do that. and we're going to change that now on here. So we're going to need to back out, exit out of the game here. Alright, once we're out, go back to the menu here. We're going to go over to RetroPie again. And this time on the top there where it says File Manager, we're going to just need to edit one of the configuration files. Hit Start. Make sure you have your keyboard for this process here. We're going to back up on here. Hit the top two dots to go back to a previous screen on here. And then again, do it twice, previous screen. And this will get you to these files on here where you're going to select this one, /opt. Okay, click Enter. Then go down to RetroPie, Enter, and then down to Supplementary. Hit Enter again. On here, it's Run Command, /Run Command. Press Enter, and then locate joy2key.py. This is the file here. Now, to edit this, it's 4, the number 4 edit, but it's F4. So you're going to press F4 on here to edit this file. Alright, so click that. Then you're going to be prompted to this screen on the bottom here. Press the number 1 and then Enter. And that'll get us here into the file. Now you're going to need to scroll down a bit on here to locate the line that we're going to need to change. So with your up-down arrow key, scroll down until you get to this part over here where it says number getting configs for D-pad, buttons A, and then below there where it says A, we're going to change that to start. We set the player 1 thing to start. If you set it to something else like select, then you're going to put select obviously on here. And then to save this, once we have the right button selected on here, you got to just save it on here. So on the bottom, as you can see, Control X is going to ask yes, press Y for yes, and then plus Enter here, save the name, and then F10 will quit out from this screen. Alright, so we're done with that on here. Now let's see, make sure everything works. We're going to go back, load up the game again, and then the player 1 button should allow us to move forward just as the launching image provides. So the game is going to load up on here. As you can see, I could press any button here and none of them is going to work. You can smash all the buttons until you press the player 1, and that's the only one that's going to be able to make forward. So that's how you get that working. Alright, now if we have one of the games loaded up, press the hotkey and the X button on your keyboard to bring up the options screen on here. And when we set up our controls on here, if we go down to the controls on here, go on the bottom here where it says controls. Alright, press A, and then go down to port 1 controls. This is our player 1 controls. As you can see, everything is set up right. Wherever you set your button 1 is the weak kick, but depending how you set it up. Like I set mine 1, 2, 3 on the bottom, and then 4, 5, 6 on top. And that's how it's set up on here. So everything for all the fighting games that Capcom has on here, whether it's Street Fighter, Marvel, or the X-Men, it's all the same. It's got your low kick, medium kick, high kick, low punch, medium, high punch. And that just, half of the games that are on here, you don't need to set up the controls. It'll be set up on here, so you don't need to configure. You're just going to need to change the other games, and those are much easier. There's only usually 2-button or 3-button games. Besides the Cyberbots, that's a 4-button game. That one you are going to need to change. Next, let's go back to the menu here. Let's go to RetroPie and then select RetroArch. Okay, this is the main RetroArch settings here. We're going to set up our coin button, if you don't have a coin button, to make sure that's functioning. And also our hotkeys to exit out the game and stuff with the joystick. So you're going to go down to settings and then go down to input. Okay, as you can see here, the one we're going to look at first is hotkey binds. So scroll down there. select that one. And this is where we set up our hotkey. Initially we set it up as, whichever button we wanted, but you could change it here. And also the one that has quit RetroArch will be the one that's going to exit out. On the images, I have that as the A button. Okay, your light punch, jab punch button. And the hotkey should be your start button, which it is. Button 0 is our start, so that's configured right. If you want to change it, this is where you could change it. And then same thing with the other buttons and features here. You could set up as many hotkeys as you want functioning. Now I keep mine only having the quit, which is the jab button, jab punch. So select that. And then all the ones that say auto on there, if you do the same for all those, then the only hotkey on your joystick that will work is the exit. So if you have somebody coming over on there, button mashing on there, they're not going to be able to enter any of these menus and stuff. Only the exit one will work on there. But if you're the only one that's going to be using this, then you could, like I said, you could take advantage of some of these. There's the record feature, load feature on there, and you could do it all from the joystick. Not that you couldn't without it, because you could always bring that up by plugging in the keyboard. Next, we're going to go to player 1 controls, and the select button, which I have nothing on here, I'm going to set it as my start button. This way the start and the select button will function as my player 1 button. Will be the same. So that will allow me to throw in like the coins to get the coins in the game started on there, which the simple one button, and do the same thing here for player 2. So this way we don't have to drill any holes or add any additional buttons. But like I said, if you have an extra button already on there, then you don't need to do that step. And then make sure you go to save there. Save auto config for both of the controls. We're going to back out, go to configuration. I like to set this on as well, so it saves it. Make sure it's saved. You could also go to the main screen here on configuration file on here, and then go to save current configuration. That will save the file there to update it on all the changes we've made, and you could quit out. Now we're going to make sure everything is working on here, so we're going to bring up a fighting game. I'm going to load up Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. Again, our load image works there. Player 1 advances forward. It starts up the game on here. So let's just make sure both controls, coins work on both sides, and we're able to exit out with our control deck on here. So the game is loaded here. I'm going to throw some quarters in. Player 1. Start up. Let me also get player 2 in on here as well. There's the coins for player 2 and start. So as you can see, both work on here, which is one button. You're able to activate the coin as well as the start. And all our controls should work on here. And then the exit feature works as well. Hotkey with the A button to exit out. Alright, so the only games you really have to change the controls are, like I said, the 2-button or 3-button games on there. And so I'm going to load up 1944. The launch image is going to come up, so you're going to know which button is what. You're just going to need to configure that in the RetroArch menu. So the A button right there is shoot, and button across it is the bomb. We're going to need to set that up. Okay. So once the game loads up on here, press your hotkey and the X button on the keyboard, and then scroll down to controls. And I'm going to need to do both for player 1 and player 2. So select player 1, and my first button is actually the 4th button, which is below there. So that's going to be my shoot. Depending how you wired yours on yours, like I said, I started my 1, 2, 3 on the bottom, 4, 5, 6 on top. If you did opposite, you could have button 1 as your shot, and then my bomb is going to be my 5th button. Okay, control number 2, same thing. If yours is wired like mine, it's going to look the same like this. If not, depending how you wired that. Set that up for it. And once you have both player 1, player 2, go here to save game remap file. Do not click on save core remap file because that will change settings for all the games. We just want to do this particular one. This way you don't have to change. Otherwise, you're going to have to change the Street Fighter games and all those. Alright, so that's how it's done, and you're going to do that for the rest of the games. I'm not going to go through all those on there. It's the same process procedure. I'm going to load up 1944 here, just make sure everything's working, everything's right. I got both player 1 player 2 started. Moves player 1, there's the shoot button, which works, then the bomb button next to it. And it's configured player 2 here. Able to move, able to shoot, and able to throw the bomb. So it's all set up on there, 1944 setup, and then like I said, just do the rest on there, Alien vs Predator, Armored Warriors, and going down the list on here until you have all buttons configured for all the games. Like I say, you don't have to do the fighting games; those are all set. Now the next step is optional here. It's to have the on-off switch. If you don't have an on-off switch or don't want to do this step, you don't have to. Like I said, put it in option. I did not include it in the image. Right now, none of them work. The volume nor the on-off, you could switch them. It's not going to do anything. We're going to need to put the script in. So press F4 to bring up here to the command line. You could type it out on here. It's in the description part. You just copy and paste the link to where we're going to need to go. But I'm going to hop on over to the PC. Just makes it much easier, the copy and paste process, if you don't want to type it out. Alright, so I'm on the Mac here. I got the regular terminal loaded up here. SSH space pi at, and then put your IP address, and then click enter. It's going to ask this, you're going to type yes, and then it's going to ask for the password. The password on here is raspberry. So type out raspberry, and then click enter. Oops, I typed it wrong. Raspberry, RASPBERRY. Enter. There we go. Alright, so now we're logged in remotely with our Pi from the PC. And then just make the typing process much easier. So it's sudo space nano space /boot /config.txt. Hit enter. And then with your cursor, you're going to scroll down to the very bottom here. All the way at the end. We're going to need to input a line here. Press enter. And then you could just copy and paste it, which I am. It's a dtoverlay equals gpio-shutdown, comma, active underscore low equals 0. Alright, so type that out on there. And once you do that, you're going to press Control X to exit, Y here to save it, yes, and then press enter. Alright, and then just to test it out on here, we're going to do a reboot. We're going to do a sudo reboot, and let's see if everything works right. Alright, so we did a reboot on here. I got the on switch to the on position, and I'm going to turn it off here with the switch to make sure everything works right. So switch it to the off, and it should turn off. And then the monitor on here also is going to turn off, and we're shut off right now. So yes, it's working. Let's boot it up again. Same thing on here. This time, let's switch it to the on position to turn this on. There's the switch. And then just wait a few seconds here. It's going to boot up. You're going to get your Arcade1up splash screen. So yeah, everything on here configured. It's working. It's correct. As long as you have it connected to the right pins. It's pin 5 and 6 on your Raspberry Pi on there. Okay. So that's where the on and off switch should be located for this to work correctly. Alright, so back on the terminal here. Now we're going to do the volume switch on here. Like I said, if you don't have the volume switch, if you're using the, or you have, I don't know, speaker using different type of style of speaker there, and has an amp with the volume knob switch. Then you don't have to do this. This I recommend the PC because there's a lot that you got to type out here. It's much easier just to copy and paste. I have the text file in the description of this video, so just open that up and just copy and paste over everything on here. This will install this on here to make everything work properly. It's going to unpack, rewire everything on here. So, all right, go to the next line, copy and paste. And then once that's done on here, we'll be able to test this out on here. So if you guys want to test this, copy and paste the next line here, hit enter. Then on your machine, flick the switch to the off position, the medium, and the high, and this should also change on here. If it does, then it should be working right. The percentage on here should change as you change from low, medium to off. As you can see, the percentage on here will be different, and that means everything's working right. Once you test this on here, Control C will exit you out from on here. And then we just got one more additional line to enter after this. So copy and paste, and then scroll down here where it says exit, and you got to be above exit in the middle there. Hit enter and copy and paste the last line on here. If you're after the exit, it's not going to work. Okay, make sure you get the whole line with the and sign and everything. Again, Control X, Y, enter. And then I always like to do a reboot here, do a sudo reboot. And you can test out the volume on there, load up a game, and everything should work. Let's check that out. So I have 1944 loaded up on here. There's a start menu, as you can see, audio on here, working fine. And then we could switch it, lower the volume, rise the volume, and then switch it to the off. And put it on, medium, high, low. Yep, everything on here working. So switch is good. Alright, and the final step on here, go to RetroPie on the menu and go down to RetroPie Setup. We're going to need to change this so when we boot up the system, when it loads up, it goes into attract mode instead of emulation station. And the way we do that on here, once we have this loaded up, go down to configuration tools. Okay, this is the fourth one down. And then on here, you're going to scroll down to auto start, the third one down, and go down to manual edit. I'm going to edit this file. I'm going to input attract as the auto boot. Right now it says emulation station number auto. So delete emulation part and then type in attract, ATTRACT. Okay, and that will make attract mode as your primary setup on there. That's going to be loaded up. We could still go to emulation station. When we're in the command line, you just type out emulation station to get you back on there. But exit out, and then let's do a perform reboot. Make sure this works. So when it restarts, reboots on here, we should be in attract mode. Give it a few seconds. There's a startup. It's rebooting. Alright, the splash screen, and after the splash screen should be the attract mode. There we are. So there we are. And the final step is just to configure the menu here to make it work with your joypad joysticks on here. Okay, as you can see, the great layout here. Got your image, the marquees there for each game. And you can scroll through the games up and down. You won't be able to do it with the joystick yet, so press the tab button on your keyboard and go up to controls. Hit enter on the controls, and then first let's configure the up and down on here. So press enter, and then go to add input. You're going to press enter, and then you're going to press up on your joystick. And you could do it to both if you want to be able to navigate the menus with both. If not, just keep it as the one joystick, depending on how you prefer that. And then we're going to go back. We're going to do the same thing with the down arrow key, add input, move your joystick. And if you want to do it for player 2 as well, add the other input. Alright, so those two you're going to need to be able to navigate through the games. You're also going to need the select. Select is the one that depicts the game. Is the pretty much the enter button. Now you could use as many buttons as you want. If you just want the jab button, you could do that for both. If you want to add in additional input, like let's say the player 1 button, you could put that, or the player 2 as well. So that's up to you how you want to configure. There's also other functions like access in the menus, the filter button. If you want to add those, you could for a joystick. If not, if you want to keep it clean so the menus does not come up only through the keyboard, then you would just leave it as it is. And button combos work as well. Edit game on here, which is the escape and down. I'm going to add the delete button here. What that does is we could edit a game. If we're going to add filters, it helps us with that. But also, if you want to, let's say, remove or delete game, instead of going to the folder, you could just do it right on here. So let's say I don't want a game on here. I don't know. Let me select. Let's go to Strider. Let's remove that on here. So you're going to hit the delete button or whatever the edit button is on here, and if you scroll all the way to the bottom, it's going to say delete this game. So if you want to remove any of the games on here, that's how you do that. You could get rid of them and then go back. If not, if you want to keep all the games on there, that's fine as well. I think it's like 30 games listed on here. If there's any games that you want me to add to this image, let me know in the description, the comments on here. I could simply add those, it's not a problem. I try to keep a Capcom theme with the releases on there, mainly the fighting games, because this is a fighting cap. But I did throw in a couple Capcom games and a couple games that were released by Arcade1up, or the Capcom arcade stick release. Alright, so that does it here. It's Mr. Hollywood here. Hope you guys enjoyed the video and the image. If there's any issues, let me know in the comments. I'll see you guys later.